Is it possible to drive through Iraq from south to north? And most importantly, is it safe? On our way back home to Europe, this is the question we ask ourselves a lot. Now we can say, yes, it's definitely possible. We spent 1 month driving all the way from Kuwait along the ancient Mesopotamian marshlands up to the bustling capital city of Baghdad.
From here we cross into Iraqi Kurdistan and drive up green mountains along winding canyons. How is it to travel Iraq, a country we have heard so much about in Western media, but mostly in connection with war and terrorism? While driving over 1,000 kilometers through Iraq, we get to know a very different side of this country. Ancient sites, breathtaking nature, and a hospitality so warm and welcoming it's difficult to feel unsafe. We realize how little we knew about Iraq.
We're Kamil and Anouk, and we converted Dakar, our 4x4 Mitsubishi Pajero, into a camper. After finishing high school, we set off on a journey headed to the Middle East. And after 7 months and over 20,000 kilometers on the road, we leave the rich Gulf countries behind and reach the border, leaving Kuwait and entering Iraq.
Early in the morning, we get our exit stamps for Kuwait and start a tedious and chaotic process for entering Iraq. Payments are mostly cash in US dollars. The official buildings are barracks and no one is wearing a uniform, so it's difficult to differentiate who's a border official and who just wants to sell a service. At the border we feel unsafe, but later realize that the borders entering and exiting Iraq are luckily not representative of the country. After exhausting 2.5 hours, we have a car insurance and a visa for 1 month. Before us lie the streets of Iraq, ready to explore.
The first thing we notice are the numerous military checkpoints. Every few kilometers the streets are blocked and every passing car is checked. We often have to pull over, show our passports, and are invited to sugary sweet tea by the officers, who are delighted and curious to know why we are traveling Iraq. The checkpoints are there to lock down the whole country within a few moments in case of terrorist activity.
We follow the road leading north towards the capital city of Baghdad. The two ancient rivers, Euphrates and Tigris, wind their way through Iraq. The plain between these two rivers is known as Mesopotamia and as the cradle of civilization. Here the first cities were formed, people started to develop handwriting, and the wheel was invented. Mesopotamia is part of the so-called Fertile Crescent, Euphrates and Tigris being a lifeline through the otherwise lifeless desert landscape. The Garden of Eden is said to have been here. In the basin where these two rivers meet, a large floodplain emerged, forming the Mesopotamian marshes. The nearer we get to the marshes, the more lively the landscape gets. Palm trees and agricultural fields emerge. Big water buffaloes start to cross the small road to cool their bodies in the muddy wet of the river to the right of the road.
We heard about a place in the marshes where locals offer boat tours into the marshes. So we head to the so-called Martyrs Monument, where we can also park overnight and sleep in the car without problems. We arrive in the evening and decide to postpone the boat tour to the next morning and only cook dinner that evening. We chat with the guards who arrange a tour for us.
Ja? Ui, dann sollten wir rein.
So the next morning, Mohammed's small Mashuf canoe takes us out into the marshes. He navigates the boat through a maze of weeds, and we immerse into a world of greenery, animals, and endless water. The marshes can't be grasped when driving past them in the car. Only on the small boat we start to realize their true vastness. After weeks in cities with chaotic traffic, dust and noise, this feels like paradise, like finally exhaling. The so-called marsh Arabs live in reed houses on small islands within the marshes. The houses are built the same way as 1,000 years ago.
The marshes are a fragile ecosystem. The former dictator Saddam Hussein accused the marsh Arabs of treachery during the Gulf Wars, the marshes being a refuge for military deserters and his opponents. So he started to drain thousands of square kilometers of marshland, trying to flush out rebels hiding in the reeds in the 1990s. The drainage leaving behind large areas of arid, polluted wilderness, thereby creating one of the most tragic human and environmental catastrophes of the 20th century, as the United Nations describe it.
We leave the marshes behind. On our way to Baghdad, we pass the ancient city of Babylon, where the Tower of Babel, mentioned in the Bible, is said to once have stood. Nowadays, Babylon is outside a city called Hilla, and large parts of the ancient town have been reconstructed. Next to the reconstruction, a former palace of Saddam Hussein is perched majestically on a hill overlooking Babylon and an estuary of the Euphrates River.
We also pass Karbala with its huge and splendid holy shrine of Imam Hussein, a famous pilgrimage site in Shi'i Islam. "95% of the population in Iraq are Muslim. We drive on. Often, unfortunately, there is an incredible amount of rubbish next to the road, and when the temperatures rise above 40 degrees, this mixture creates an awful smell.
The south of Iraq is particularly densely populated, so we have difficulties finding places to sleep, and we spend some nights directly next to the street or at checkpoints. In the evening, curious villagers often come by and spend the evening with us, an openness and warmth that we have never experienced before. Even though communication only works via Google Translate, we feel so welcome and safe. We generally feel very safe in Iraq.
The closer we get to Baghdad, the more crowded and chaotic the streets get. Traffic laws have long been more of a suggestion than a hard rule.
Ah, ich dachte eigentlich, es wäre ein Bordstein. Krass.
We slowly navigate our way into the heart of the city. Traffic lights start to no longer play a role, and policemen manage the honking and impatient traffic.
Als Bulle hast du doch auch eine Gehörsschädigung nach so einem Tag, oder?
Ja, das macht er wahrscheinlich jeden Tag.
Ich glaube, da hast du Ohrstöpsel drin.
Nicht so aus. We stay in a hotel for 3 days. Nuki has a light food poisoning and we rest and sleep a lot. From the hotel we explore the city. Instead of driving ourselves, we use Careem, the Uber of the Middle East.
Baghdad still shows scars of the three brutal Gulf Wars that started in the 1980s and only ended in 2011. Conjured up by oil, international power struggles, possible weapons of mass destruction and lack of evidence, the wars lasted 30 years, shattering the country and its people.
What was considered liberation in Iraq is beginning to look more and more like occupation.
We pass by facades covered with bullet holes, old tank barriers and the remains of bombed houses. Today, the atmosphere in Baghdad is lively. Baghdad is a vibrant city. There are art festivals, theatres and lots of young people in the streets, the average age being 20 in Iraq. In local media, Baghdad is portrayed as the new trending city, and more international tourists visit Baghdad each year.
We leave the capital city behind and head further north. On our way we pass by the Great Mosque of Samarra, built 1,100 years ago. At the time of its construction it was the world's largest mosque. The mosque looks very special with its spiraling minaret. Over the next kilometers, we experience a drastic change in scenery. The beige, arid landscape slowly gets greener, and in the distance, the foothills of the Zagros mountain range appear.
And now we're slowly reaching the Iraqi Kurdistan checkpoint, and let's see how long it will take.
Our passports are checked at a bigger checkpoint, and 15 minutes later we are on the road again. We wind our way up green mountains. The Kurdish region around the Zagros mountains is a semi-autonomous region in northern Iraq, inhabited by the Kurds, the second largest ethnic group in Iraq. Up here different Kurdish languages are spoken. Not only the language changes, but also the food that is served in the small restaurants along the street. Dishes are colorful with a wide variety of vegetables.
Up in the mountains, the hills are covered with green grass, and after months in dry desert landscape, we can't stop to look out of the window and admire how green everything is. So we find ourselves a beautiful camp spot next to a river and relax. Here it's easy to find nice sleeping spots in nature again.
The next days we choose our camp spots in green meadows, and for the first time in ages we're traveling a region where vegetables grow naturally and not in air-conditioned conservatories.
Irgendwie fühlt es sich hier auch wieder natürlicher an, Obst und Gemüse zu kaufen. Ja. Zwischendrin hatte ich das Gefühl so, nee, es fühlt sich irgendwie jetzt falsch an, hier Tomaten zu kaufen und so. Los, die Testratte. Und wie schmeckt das kurdische Früchtlein?
Erst ein bisschen nach Kaki. Schmeckt nach gar nichts.
Ich glaube, wir haben eine Unreife oder so rausgesucht.
Nein, so schmeckt nach gar nichts.
Oh nein. Okay.
We go for some beautiful hikes. Only here we realize how long we haven't been on long walks.
For a week we drive from Erbil over small well-paved mountain roads through the Zagros mountains to the Turkish border. After 1 month in Iraq and Iraqi Kurdistan, our impressions of this region of the Middle East has gotten much more colorful, nuanced and positive.
Today is our last day in Iraq, and it feels a little strange because it's the last country we'll properly travel on our journey. Turkey, we won't see much of Turkey. I guess we'll drive through Turkey in a week, 1.5. And to be honest, I feel tired. Just big tiredness of traveling, a big tiredness of the day-to-day life on the road, and I'm looking forward to getting home.
The last months were full of beautiful experiences and breathtaking nature, but also packed with stress, hardly any privacy, and a constant ever-changing variety of problems to solve. Be it losing our credit card, strange sounds around the car, or being sick. After 3/4 of a year living on the road, we are looking forward to seeing our friends and family again, having drinkable running water, taking warm showers, having a toilet, having freshly washed clothes and a fridge.
The border leaving Iraq and entering Turkey is long and chaotic again. We are relieved that the next borders on our way home will be much easier. Over the next 2 weeks we drive the 4,000 kilometers back to Germany. The days spent driving and watching the landscape pass by gives us time to slowly arrive back in Europe, to watch the vegetation and languages change, and to slowly and softly internally end our journey. See you soon.